first the United Way, the pace setter businesses that are here, the people that are present, for the honor of being able to speak to you today, and for your decades of work carrying out of wisdom that the rising tide raises all boats. Or maybe better said, something simple like, for me, it's thanks for carrying out the wisdom of the Lorax and Dr. Seuss, who I might read with my grandchildren, who said, unless someone like you cares a whole lot, nothing's gonna get better. It's not. United Way gives each of us, blessed with financial security, the chance to follow the biblical principle that for those who are given much, much is expected. We are our brother's keeper. In fact, with the United Way and all the volunteers that have been working on the floods in North and South Louisiana, the volunteers that are in this room, have exemplified is that Louisiana is a resilient people. That we are our community's keeper, and we live that way. And in doing that and being our community's keeper, there are lessons that we can learn. 3 of these come out of The Wizard of Oz for me. My mother made us watch The Wizard of Oz every year. For those of you who lived in a time when there was only 3 channels, every year The Wizard of Oz would come on once a year, and we would watch it every year. First of all, as far as community is concerned, we can't look for the man behind the curtain to solve our problems. They're our concerns. They're our problems. And just like the Tin Man and the Scarecrow and the Lion have the heart, brain, and courage, we also have the ingredients needed to provide solutions. In fact, the ingredients are in this room. And lastly, just like the Tin Man and the Scarecrow and the Lion solve their problems working together, we have to do the same. There's an African proverb that says, when spider webs unite, they can tie up a line. For decades, the United Way has worked to unite the spider webs, to bridge the economic, racial, and generation gaps in our community. You know, if we didn't have any problems to solve, you know, like Dorothy did getting home in The Wizard of Oz, we wouldn't need the United Way, or the pace setter companies, or nonprofits for that matter, the Chamber of Commerce, but we do. This spirit of volunteerism is uniquely American. It's what makes this country the greatest country in the world. We need to continue to work harder on the idea that the United Way had from its inception. We must connect. It's why the Chamber of Commerce is moving forward on more organized efforts to provide the chance for business, government, education, nonprofit leadership to work together. We've got to harness the existing ideas. We saw that in what Meryl said. The key is not to be overwhelmed by the magnitude of concern or the problem that seems just so overwhelming. And then we just sit down and say, do nothing. We have to figure out how to tie it all together. But I don't want to spend this time really talking about organizations and mission and vision because, you know, it's pretty dull stuff. And I don't want to put you to sleep after lunch. So instead, I'm going to shift the thinking and talk on a more personal level. I'm going to share with you in the next 10 minutes a personal story. And I'm going to share an advertisement from a newspaper. So this is going to be a very unusual keynote address. On March 3rd, a little over 5 years ago, 4:30 in the afternoon, I got a phone call from my oldest daughter, Laura. I remember getting the phone call on the 2nd floor, near the stairs. In fact, it was in front of room 250. I know that because that's one of the few places in the hospital where there is consistent cell phone signal. That 10-minute call changed my world and the world of my family. When I answered the phone, Laura was crying hysterically, trying to talk through her tears, and I really couldn't understand a lot of what she was saying. What I could make out was that she had not been able to get in touch with her husband, Clint, since early that morning, and she was sure something was wrong. As for me, my initial impression was surely Clint's all right. Laura was always one who worried a lot, but after all, Clint was 28 years old, he was healthy. He didn't have a dangerous job. He was a preacher, actually, in a church near Cowboys Stadium in Arlington. Well, I stayed on the phone consoling Laura. She drove from a house call where she'd been seeing a handicapped child as an occupational therapist. But as I continued to talk to her and continued to drive, she continued to drive to North Arlington, I started to hear some sounds of police sirens passing her by. And as she arrived at the church, the scene was something out of a nightmare or a horror story. She saw a parking lot filled with police cars and flashing lights. Well, by then, Laura was pretty much inconsolable. So I asked her to hand the phone to the music minister. In the meantime, she tried to run to the office to find Clint, break through the yellow tape, but the police stopped her to protect the crime scene, but really to protect her from a gruesome sight. The music minister confirmed what Laura knew already and told me she couldn't reach Clint because something horrible had happened to Clint. He was killed by a man who had been released from prison a week before. The man had killed Clint for his computer and his phone and his wallet. Well, my wife and I threw some clothes into the car. We headed for the church in Arlington. When we got there, we found Laura lying in the parking lot. She was using a concrete block used for parking as her pillow. She was surrounded by people from the church and the police that were sitting with her. The days and weeks and months of that following were a blur. However, today I don't want to focus with you on the tragedy or the aftermath. Just use that as context. But on what people did to help Laura and our family. I want you to know that the biblical teaching that love conquers evil is true. I want to define for you the miracle of boldness and caring, something that the United Way facilitates every day. Boldness and caring is defined by my sister and Lene Scott, a friend who drove to Dallas to pack up Clint's clothes after Clint and Laura's house was sold 1 month after his death. We just couldn't bring ourselves to do it. Boldness and caring is defined by my nurse practitioner, who worked 12 to 14 hours a day to care for the patients, keep my practice running. Boldness and caring is defined by Dr. Stedham, a practicing psychologist in Arlington who did not know us, who visited or called Laura once or twice a day, every day for months, and then every week for the last 5 years. We've yet to receive one bill for his services. Boldness and caring is employers in Dallas who kept Laura's job open for over a year until she could come back after the trial. Boldness and caring is the middle and high schoolers Laura had befriended back in Shreveport. Years before, they became her strength in very difficult times. See, Laura was one of the popular girls in high school, but she had this way of developing true friendships with people who maybe didn't fit in as well during those high school years. They were the ones she counted on during this tragedy. And boldness and caring is a girl from Ohio who brought Laura into this group of young people who lived in Dallas but were from Ohio. She became an honorary Ohio State Buckeye. This group helped her to feel normal again. Boldness and caring is Clint. Laura and Clint had a conversation 2 weeks before his death, predicated by an event. Clint had become acutely short of breath, had chest tightness, feeling of doom, and he was driving back home. He pulled into the Walmart, where he called 911, was taken to the hospital in an ambulance. Subsequently, they found everything was okay and described the event as a panic attack. Know that Clint had never had anything close to a panic attack ever in his life. But because of the panic attack, Laura and Clint had a conversation in that emergency room. In which Clint told Laura if something was to happen to him, he wanted her to get married again and go on with her life. That was a couple of weeks before he died. About a year and a half ago, after she had decided to take a break from the dating scene, discouraged, Laura met a young man named Clay, who just finished law school after a couple of years in the Peace Corps. He asked her to marry him in August of last year. And because of what Clint said, Laura had peace with saying yes. About 9 months ago, Laura went to the doctor for a health concern. Long story short, hormone levels and other tests were done. She was told that it'd be extremely difficult or unlikely that she could have children. No, that was devastating to Laura. Her lifelong dream was never a career. It was to have a family. There were lots of tears, but she faced tragedy before, and certainly she could weather this with Clay. On January 30th, Laura walked down the aisle in Dallas and married Clay. And as for the health concern, for Mother's Day this year, my wife got this picture frame. It says on the bottom, "Me and my grandma." And in the middle, it says, "Picture to come in early December." We don't have the picture yet, but Laura's baby is due in December, and y'all got it a lot faster than we did. Now tears were turned to tears of joy. Some of you might have already faced tragedy. If not, you will. And when you do, I want you to remember 3 things from this story. First, when tragedy occurs, look for the angels. They'll be there. They'll be there to share boldness and caring with you. Second, our lives are not just a series of coincidences. Some things are just difficult to explain, like Clint's panic attack, like the coincidence that was behind Laura meeting Clay, and a pregnancy when medical science was certain that wouldn't happen. There is such a thing as miracles, and a loving God behind those miracles. And lastly, I tell you this story so that your eyes will be open to see people who need you, that you'll be open to your opportunities to be angels, to be bold and caring like Lene and Dr. Stedham and my sister and Brent. That's the story. Now here's the advertisement. It has a similar theme. On March 24, Starbucks put a lot of money into 2 full-page ad in the Wall Street Journal. And on the bottom of the first page of the ad, it says, "Every day we have a choice." And it lists some choices: division or unity, isolation or community, apathy or passion, ego or humility, partisanship or leadership, blame or responsibility, cowardice or courage, nostalgia or vision, fear or love, indifference or compassion. And you turn over a couple of pages to a letter that they shared with the readers of the Wall Street Journal, and I want to read it to you. When you read the headlines, or you turn on the news, when you scroll through your social media feed or listen to the candidates, you could easily mistake America as a nation lost, a people who have severed the common bonds that hold us together: compassion, respect, shared responsibility, a belief in service, a willingness to unite despite our differences. Today, for just a moment, we wanted to pause and reflect, to go beyond the hatred and the vitriol and see a different story of America. It's a story that's not bound by party affiliations or religious beliefs. It's not dependent on living in one zip code over another. It's not the left-leaning or the right-leaning. It's not about your income or your wealth. It lives in our small towns and also in our cities, in the classroom of a teacher who is fighting for the potential in every student. You see it in the volunteer who mentors youth, and in those helping America's veterans successfully transition to civilian life, and in those who work to include rather than discriminate. You see it in the leader who invests in her community, and in the nurse who treats the elderly with dignity. This is the story we believe in. This is not about the choice we make every 4 years. This is about the choices we make every single day. I think Starbucks nailed it. Every day in this community, in this room, there are a lot more stories like those described in the ad from Starbucks and the angels in our family's life. Compassion, respect, shared responsibility, and belief in service are alive and well. This is in the stories about choices made by people every day that show love and personal sacrifice. The only way you and I will live a life of meaning is to make those stories a part of our lives. Martin Luther King said, "Darkness can't drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate can't drive out hate, only love can do that." So let me close with this. In my office, I have a quote on a desk lamp. It says, "Isn't it wonderful that nobody need wait a single moment before starting to improve the world?" The power of that statement is not the words, it's really the author. See, this comes from a diary of a 12-year-old girl, a girl who was confined to an attic of a house in the Netherlands in 1943. She was there to hide from people who wanted to kill her because of her race or her religion. This quote is from the diary of Anne Frank, as she hid from the Nazis during World War II. So for me, if she can write that under those circumstances, and if Laura could overcome the tragedy that she overcame, what possibly could hold me back from doing the same? What story can I create for my life? And for you, what possibly could hold you back? What story will you create? Many of you have a long time to write it. Thank you for what you do to make North Louisiana the place it is, and to work for all of us. You know, you're never wasting time, as Merrill says, when you share love. Thank you very much.